Hello, everyone, and welcome. Those of you online, thank you so much for logging in this evening and being with us. We appreciate it. My name is Tara Conway. My pronouns are she, her, and I am one of the facilitators here with my friend Amanda this evening. I want to start first by saying just how meaningful it is to be here tonight, no matter why we're here, because we get to talk about things that maybe sometimes are not spoken about so openly, right? And this is going to be a really safe room tonight. Amanda and I are doing this for the very first time, so we plan on learning a lot from you tonight as well, so don't be shy. You know, this is a space where we can gather and reflect together and support each other on end-of-life care and care that we see in long-term care facilities in particular. For me, this has become an incredible passion just recently. So I'm a 27-year corporate finance banker. So I'm an executive at a bank for 27 years. And one day I was driving, I was listening to this audiobook, and it was talking about a death doula role. And I said, what is a death doula? I had no idea, I never heard of this before. I don't know how I haven't heard of it. But I went to work that day and I started researching, like, what is a death doula? What do they do? And I became absolutely obsessed, and I signed up for the course with HHA same day. And it's become an absolute passion of mine for the final third of my life. So now I'm counting down to retirement, don't tell the bank. But 4.5 years, I'm gone. If anybody's recording this, don't tell BMO, because I love BMO. But I just can't wait to really dive in and do more meaningful work like this. I'm also someone who's a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. And to be here tonight when it's Pride Month and get to help co-facilitate this workshop is absolutely so special. It means we may have rushed a little bit in our preparation, so be kind, because we really wanted to do this on Pride Month. The idea of recloseting or closeting is something that I relate to personally, and you'll hear a little bit about that in a few minutes. And it's also why I care so deeply about this workshop tonight, Still Me, and so we'll get into that in a second. My hope is that you feel this is a very supportive gathering tonight, and a place where you can ask questions, interrupt us anytime you want, with curiosity and compassion. You're safe here and your voice matters here. I want to turn this over to Amanda so you can introduce yourself as well.
Thank you. I'm Amanda Johnson. I am a death doula and also the owner of Qualicare Home Care in Guelph. In my work supporting clients at home, I see many of the same issues you're going to see tonight. As a member of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, I have also dealt with some of these issues in my own life, and I hope that our shared experiences can lead us all to improve care for our clients or loved ones and their families. Back to you.
Okay, so I'm going to take us through the first little bit, and it's meant to be a little bit of a conversation as we go here. And then we'll have Amanda jump back in for some of the workshop here, and we'll go back and forth a little bit. So this is a little bit of my personal story, and you know, this is a picture of me and my wife, and I have it here because it's Pride Month, and I have a lot of pride in my relationship. And so I wanted to start here because I was painting this. It's a paint by numbers. That's why it looks really bad. It's not a bad photographer. It's my painting. Okay, so I'm doing this at home, and you can see I'm almost finished the painting. But you know, when Tracy first told me about this idea that sometimes people who are part of this community and they move into a long-term care facility, the idea of people feeling that they have to recloset. And I started one day thinking about that as I was doing my painting in my house, displaying it for everybody to see. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. And I started thinking, if I were going into a long-term care facility, would I be as comfortable having this displayed. And I don't know if I would. And that's not any criticism to a long-term care facility, because sometimes it's myself, right? Like, I do this to myself. So it really made me passionate about how do we get out there and support this work so that we make long-term care facilities very safe spaces, right? Anywhere, a very safe space for anyone. And so I just wanted to share, you know, a little bit of my story about the closet and the impact of that. So early in my career, I was going into my first ever executive role. Very excited about that. Should have been the best year of my life. I was also engaged to get married to a woman, but I took on a brand new team. So I had these 13 branch managers that now were going to report to me. And I was so afraid that they would find out that I was marrying a woman. I had no reason for that fear. I just felt it. Probably lots of reasons. But for me at the time, I didn't understand that. But the problem was, I had a horrible year that year from a performance perspective. In 27 years, I've been a good performer. That year I was not. And so it took years later for me to say, what happened? Like, why did I do so bad, right? And I remember now, because I've grown up a little bit, you know, you have to build trust with people, especially if you have people that report to you, look up to you, and you're a role model for people. And I was so afraid to ask them about their weekend or if they had children, because I didn't want them to ask me anything, right? And so the impact was huge, because I ended up, all this noise in your head, you know, you're spending so much time trying to pretend you're something you're not, trying to hide who you are, that I wasn't building relationships with my people. And so, you know, that impact is huge from a productivity perspective, a mental wellness perspective. And so I really wanted to start there because it really does paint the picture a little bit on what is recloseting, right? What does that look like? And again, for me, it's so real. So I'm open to sharing anything about my experience as we go through. I did want to do a quick shout out here to a couple of things, a couple of people, HHA in particular, you know, Glenn and Tracy. Tracy's given Amanda and I an opportunity to do this. And I can tell you, she just let us go, build something, do it, and I trust you. And it was absolutely incredible. So thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. No Place Like Home is a program within HHA. If you've not heard of the program, absolutely incredible. And I wanted to do a quick shout out to Callista English. Callista is here from the program itself, and she is the program lead. And so I want to give her a couple of minutes to talk about the program and get you up for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. This is such an important cause to me, myself. And I just want to give a thank you to the Martin Fund through the Hamilton Community Foundation, as well as the Pride and Remembrance Foundation, and also Smith's Funeral Home for hosting us here today. Without everyone, all these supports, we couldn't all be here, so I just want to thank everyone for being here.
Thank you for taking on this very big role, Callista, and leading this program for us. We appreciate it. I have to keep putting these glasses on because I just got eye surgery and now I can't see up close, so I forget sometimes that I can't see, so please bear with me. We'll keep going. So a couple of ground rules for tonight. And I already repeated some of this. I already spoke about safe place. Honestly, please keep an open mind. Somebody may say something in the room that you completely disagree with. That's okay. That's their voice in that moment. It's how they're feeling, right? Let's be very respectful to that. And again, as I said before, it's our first time running this workshop. We hope to do a lot more of these. So we'll be looking for your feedback and we'll talk about that at the end. So I'd like to start with a little bit of a reflective exercise. So just asking all of you in the room for a second, you know, whether it was yourself or somebody you really, really care about that was hiding something about their identity, right? Tonight we're talking about sexual orientation, somebody showing up as their authentic self, It could be anything, right? Maybe you know somebody that was hiding something about their financial situation, or, you know, their nationality, or whatever reason somebody was hiding. I just want you to think about that for a second. And honestly, I want to open it up and just see if anybody wants to share how that felt for you, either watching somebody else go through that, or if you experience it yourself. Anybody in the room can reflect on that and think about any example that you've gone through? No? No takers? Quiet room tonight.
I'm just going to invite people online
Absolutely.
to see.
Sorry, people online as well. That's awesome. Thank you. We're not going to pick on anybody. This is not that room. Okay, but if you don't think of anything in particular, and there's no questions in the room, Tracy?
Just sorry, 1 second. I don't type that fast.
You don't type as fast as I speak.
Well, no.
Not many people do, because I'm from Newfoundland, so we speak really fast when you're from Newfoundland. Yeah.
I would say, I guess if there's something about yourself that you really don't want others to know, that there's a certain level of anxiety that comes with that. Also, a sense of shame, because you're always worried about, what if people find out, what if somebody judges me, and how is that going to impact me going forward? So I've had different scenarios with that. I think initially when I lost my hair due to lupus and alopecia, and I was hiding that with wigs because I had such a poor experience because it happened during nursing school, and I had expected my fellow nursing students to be more compassionate instead of making fun of me. So there was like various different times where, you know what, I would go bald and then go through some difficult scenario, some offhanded comment like, you know, when last did you have chemo or whatever, and then I would go back to not being bald in public again. So me being bald in public is very recent over the last few months, but it was a lot of anxiety and head work about, what are people going to say, my parents who don't agree with me being in public bald for whatever reason. So I can appreciate the amount of head work it takes to go and deal with certain situations or entering a public place.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, I had to work it out in my head first to see how I was going to say it.
It is so powerful. Like, it's such a great example, right? And congratulations on getting to the other side too, and being able to just be you.
Oh, he
and
knows
be okay.
it was hard work.
Yeah. That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else?
I have a very bad experience because I was living in Iran my whole life, and everybody that was in this community, they couldn't show themselves, and it was so hard because all of my friends were in that community and they couldn't show it.
Yeah.
Oh, that is tough. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing. It's still very real, huh? And it still hurts a lot. Thank you for being vulnerable and willing to share that. Incredible.
I guess I grew up in the closet, worked in the corporate world, and had to be very quiet. You mentioned some ideas that were reflective for me. And it's just often scary when you can't be who you are, because you really can't.
Yeah.
And I've worked in long-term care centers, and I've seen how tables in that community can actually ostracize someone because they're different. And that, I always grew up on the other side of normal. So I knew what that was, and that scared me. So this workshop is important to keep on witnessing and see how much we're growing and changing, because it's so important.
Amazing.
I don't want to be silent.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you know what? It's true. You did say something very important there. Like, sometimes in our communities, and sometimes it's not intentional, sometimes it is. It's unfortunate that today we still have to worry about those intentional things, right? That really stop people from being themselves. And so we're here to try to make an impact in that, right? And keep going. And I'm glad you said that. Thank you. So we'll talk a little bit about what we want to deliver in the workshop, what we hope to accomplish tonight as we keep going with the conversation. But on the community piece, like I remember one of the pieces for me was I was running an agriculture team, and I had a lot of very small rural communities, a lot of farming communities. We had a lot of Mennonite communities, Amish communities, and there were different views. And I remember at one point, one of my team members were not taking me on any client meetings. And I remember one day I finally sat down and said, you keep canceling. Why are you not taking me out to see clients? I'm trying to help. I was the leader. And they finally opened up and said, well, if my clients know you're married to a woman, they're going to leave me, and I need to grow my business. Like, I'm not going to meet my targets if they find out you're married to a woman. So it was so interesting because I realized that we got to put that on the table and talk about it. That's key, right? Like, let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we problem solve this together. And it can be an issue for people. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Anyone else before we move on? Good? Technology's good?
Technology is good,
Okay.
yes. Oh, I think that I have somebody with their hand up. Oh, yes, I do have somebody with their hand up. Kathleen, your hand is up if you would like to unmute yourself.
Hi, my story, can you hear me okay? Yeah. My story is not really a happy one, although it probably has a happier ending than a beginning. I was deeply, deeply closeted for most of my adult life. I was in seminary, working on my Master's of Divinity, and I was accidentally outed by somebody I was trying to help. I was then invited to please leave the seminary ASAP, continue your education elsewhere, but you're no longer appropriate for our faith community. I also lost the job I had working at a church. I lost many of my friends who could no longer risk being associated with me. I lost just about everything by coming out. I was able to complete my master's elsewhere, and I now work in spiritual care, trying to help people find meaning and purpose in their life regardless of who they are. I'm working in long-term care and retirement at a place that celebrates my unicornness. And like I said, it's a sad story with a happy ending.
I love that. I love that. I love that you ended with celebrating your unicornness. That was so cool. And I think it is important to acknowledge that, yeah, not all these stories are happy. That's the point, right? There's work to be done. So really, really happy that that you had a happy ending in there. And definitely sorry you've had to experience some of those things because it's very difficult. So as far as workshop, I mean, we're hoping that what we get through tonight is really help people understand, if people don't already understand, what is recloseting mean, right? It's one thing to be in the closet, but now to have to recloset again and just get a good understanding, exploring some trauma histories as we go through the rest of the evening, building inclusive care practices. How can we all do that just a little bit better? And strengthen safety and belonging. And then anything else you want to get out of the workshop, again, jump in anytime you want tonight. So I think at this point, I'm going to step aside and let Amanda take over.
All right. Thank you. I'm a little too short for the podium, so I'm going to hold it. So what is the closet? When we talk about being in the closet, we're describing the experience of keeping one's gender identity or sexuality from public knowledge. For many of us, coming out isn't a single moment. It's a process. It's something that happens repeatedly over and over again in different contexts, across different settings, accompanied by real anxiety and uncertainty. The term itself has a rich history. Before World War II, coming out was borrowed from debutante culture. It was first used by gay people coming out to each other, not so much in the broader public context. Understanding that origin reminds us just how personal and vulnerable disclosure has always been. That vulnerability doesn't disappear with time. It shows up in care settings every day. Our role as care providers is to create spaces where residents don't have to weigh whether it's safe to be themselves. Now that we've looked at what the closet means, let's explore why people still feel they need to be there. Many people assume that being in the closet is about shame. More often, it's about safety. The fear of rejection, abuse, discrimination makes disclosure feel genuinely dangerous. For younger people, that risk is concrete. In Canada, between 20 and 45% of youth experience homelessness, identify as 2S LGBTQI+. For older adults, the fear runs deeper and is rooted in living memory. Many grew up in a time where being gay or trans was criminalized, when people lost jobs, a time when they faced violence simply for being who they were. Those experiences don't fade with age. They shape how residents approach care, how much they trust staff, and how freely they express themselves. As care providers, our job is to hold that history with care and build environments where people don't have to choose between safety and honesty. With that in mind, let's look at what happens when someone who was once out feels forced to hide again, a process known as recloseting. Thanks.
You're lowering that mic.
A lot of people believe that you just live happily ever after, and that just is a myth.
People like ourselves, older, are hiding in nursing homes or whatever because they are scared to death.
It's incredibly common to go back into the closet again.
You just know when they don't want you there.
We've heard about homemakers going in, taking out a Bible and having the elder pray and asking for forgiveness.
And to be cured. It's not too late for you to be cured of this. They go back in the closet. She might mistreat me or abuse me.
They're so afraid that they are resisting any kind of medical attention.
A person was in their mid-20s during the McCarthy era.
The closet was the norm.
They could lose their job, they could lose, families.
We were sick. Just sick. We were considered sick.
People were involuntarily hospitalized in psychiatric facilities.
Even electroshock.
The degradation of these people is so complete that their sex satisfaction comes only in being tortured themselves.
I was on the route to the nut farm.
So there's a real distrust of mainstream institutions.
I would never put myself in danger.
He became much more fearful of people knowing that he was gay.
You're not leaving now.
Not right now.
LGBT elders are more likely than the general population to age alone because many gay elders never had children, have not had great relationships with their families of origin. There would be a higher degree of sort of alienation and isolation.
My family was the reason I existed, and I lost them all. If they ever choose to catch up before I die, I welcome them.
The LGBT aging issues are an epidemic.
There's a small and growing group of us.
We're trying to go into the existing network so they become more inclusive. One of those common lines we get is like, we don't have any gay elders here.
If I wasn't the only person responsible for Alexander, I would have ended my life.
This is our life.
Oh, we're the new step every day.
We have a whole generation of people who don't know who we are. That's really sad, because you're missing out on a lot. We know a lot. We did a lot for you. You wouldn't be here if it weren't for us.
Look at unscrewing me. Too bad I don't have an open casket. Well, there'll be no open casket. There won't be anything, right?
If we are saying come out and be filled with pride, it's our responsibility to make sure that continues right through their last day.
So, older adults who have experienced a lot of trauma through their lives, different types of trauma, they bring all that with them when they come into care when they get older. Even subtle cues, a staff member's tone of voice, a form that doesn't reflect their identity, little things that you might not think about might trigger and reopen old wounds. Understanding this can help staff approach care with more empathy and awareness. Our role is to create spaces where these histories are acknowledged but not repeated. Inclusive care means recognizing that trust must be rebuilt and safety must be demonstrated through consistent respect and affirmation. Now that we've explored historical context, let's look at the process of recloseting. What is recloseting? It happens when someone who was out and proud suddenly feels like they have to go back inside and hide again to stay safe. It's a survival strategy shaped by past discrimination and trauma. Entering long-term care can feel like stepping back into a system that is unwelcoming or even threatening. Even small signals of discomfort or bias from staff can reinforce the fear of being unsafe. Recloseting often shows up in subtle ways. Residents may switch pronouns. They may change their outward appearance. They may start appearing as their birth designated gender. They may refer to a partner as a friend or a roommate. They might stop displaying photos. They might remove symbols. They might live in an environment that is very, no pictures, nothing, just very sterilized. They might avoid correcting staff who misgender them. They might avoid social interaction for fear of saying something and outing themselves. For trans and non-binary residents, this can be especially painful. They might be pressured to use their dead name. They might feel pressured to present as their assigned sex at birth to avoid conflict or judgment. This impact is significant. Hiding identity increases stress, anxiety, and depression. And I'm going to pass it back over to Tara now. Thank you. Okay, so see, I come back, I have the easy job, right? Because when I get up here, then I start asking you questions. I must have had something to do with building some of this. So we're going to talk about examples a little bit, and there's some on the screen here, but
I did want to ask first if anybody in the room has seen any of this, right? Like, I know we talked a little bit about this, but have you seen this recloseting happen in your world? Anybody want to share what you've witnessed?
I've seen it in the hospital, I've seen it in LTC, I've seen it in a hospice setting, and the fear around, am I going to get proper pain medication? Is it going to be that they're going to experiment on me? And when I worked in the hospital, my patient ended up signing themselves out against medical advice because they were so fearful. And I tried to talk with them about, whatever procedure that I would stay by their side, but the impact and their history of what they had gone through was too much for them to be able to stay in that environment.
Yeah, that's awful. And this is recent experiences, like not?
I would say probably like 8-9 years ago.
Okay, pretty recent, right? Anybody else want to share? Thank you for sharing that. And you're keeping an eye online as well, Tracy?
Absolutely, yeah. I actually was meeting with somebody, and it was interesting in the video where they said, we don't have anybody in our long-term care facility. We've reached out to so many long-term care facilities over the last year, and we hear that time and time and time again. And I was leaving a meeting, and one of the staff members said to me, I personally am caring for 3 trans people on my floor, and not only do they not feel comfortable being who they are within the residence, I don't feel comfortable sharing my identity with my employer. So, not only is it happening, I think, among our residents, but also how many people who are actually in that care role also don't feel able to be who they, identifying and have that identity within their workplace. So that would surprise me.
Yeah.
I was getting used to long-term care facilities saying, oh, we don't need this. We don't have any residents. But then to hear that from a staff member, it was pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, it's not just in facilities either, it happens in home care as well, because
without a doubt,
people might feel safer staying in their own homes, but they still have strangers coming into their home to care for them, and so it can still happen there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unbelievable how much we still see that, right? And some of these things are so subtle. They really are. Like, if you really are looking for it and want to help, it's paying attention to those little subtle signs, right, that may happen. And I mean, some of them you'll see here, right? A lesbian who's using the term boyfriend, right? Pronoun shifts, like that's one thing that I've noticed is somebody is all the time using one pronoun, and then all of a sudden you hear them with somebody else and it's a different pronoun. And you realize, okay, is there a different pronoun? Like, why are they not comfortable telling me the right pronoun? And so, one of the ways in my experience, I always try to start with what my pronouns are, because then I find it, even just that, when I hear somebody say that to me, when I hear Amanda say, my pronouns are she, her, I automatically feel like I have permission for whatever my pronouns are. Amanda's good. Just because of the fact that she said that, right? So there's little things like that can happen. Clothing, hairstyle, voice, mannerisms changing over time. Like they're trying to fit into something else, right? And wearing very uncomfortable clothing. I've seen that happen a lot, where you can see visibly that somebody's very uncomfortable. And it could be a lot of reasons, we can't make assumptions, but again, it's just something to pay attention to, right? I'm gonna lose my slides here. As long as I got my glasses, I could still read, hopefully. But anybody else want to share any other examples of recloseting?
I spent 27 years working in healthcare as a spiritual care provider, and it was because it was short term, like people coming in for acute care, it was really not a safe space because they were coming quickly. You know, they're coming through all kinds of venues, coming into hospital and going out again, and in that process, not feeling safe at all. And it was really evident in the units. You know, you really have to work hard to, you know, with teammates to encompass what's happening, you know? And you have to be very subtle in how you do it.
Yeah. Such a good call out though, right? If a facility has a lot of turnover, that's huge, because no matter what you're doing as a board, as staff, no matter what you're doing to make it a safe, inclusive place, it's hard to keep up with that and keep that environment strong when you have new people coming in that have totally different views. It's really, really hard to do that. Such a good call out. Thank you for sharing that. And again, like, I think we all know this, right? If a resident is hiding something about who they are, it really does speak to, is the environment safe, right? And it may be very safe, but is there things that can be done that make it obviously safe to residents, right? And what would some of those things be? I know Amanda talked a lot about recloseting. I think we get the idea of how that happens and how to recognize it a little bit. So let's talk now how care providers, how all of us as care providers can prevent it really and create environments that are safer. So talking about some of the impacts, again, like some of this may feel a little repetitive, but I think that's the intention, because they're just so important. And the more we repeat them, the more we all walk away and remember some of these things that are happening if we don't take the time to pay attention. You know, we talked about the impacts of recloseting, stress. You know, I went through that myself. I talked about that earlier, right? We heard from some people in the room. Mental health impacts are absolutely huge. And if we are care providers and there's a facility where residents are struggling with mental health issues, it's going to impact the entire facility, right? It'll impact the staff that are working with those individuals, as well as the other residents. It's absolutely huge. You know, depression, anxiety. You know, I had here, like, hiding really takes its toll. Even just that noise in your head, right? Always getting in the way of just being able to be yourself. And how do you truly feel you love yourself if you don't feel you can be yourself? It's got to be so hard on people that have to go through this. Older 2S LGBTQIA+, I gotta practice that, get better at that, right? Adults who are a little older, they already feel a lot of isolation. I think Amanda talked about that earlier. There's a lot of isolation already. Oftentimes they spend a lot more time alone than us who are out and meeting up with our friends all the time. So imagine just how bad it is if then they're not even allowing their loved ones to come in. So now let's explore a little bit again, like how do we prevent it? How do we build greater trust and just prevent that dynamic from happening in the care environments? Amanda, I think I'm gonna bring you up, and especially given your experience in this space.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, so because I work in caregiving, I have a little bit of experience around power dynamics in care. Whether caregivers feel powerful or not, they are in a position of authority. And it's perceived that way by residents, usually. Staff control access to their medication, they control their personal care, they control their daily routines, and even social interactions. For 2SL LGBTQIA+ residents, especially those who have faced discrimination in healthcare, housing, or social services, authority can feel intimidating. Residents are vulnerable. They rely on staff for essential needs, which can make them hesitant to speak up or correct harmful assumptions. Residents may fear that being open about their identity could affect the quality of care they receive.
Sorry, I'm trying to hear you online.
Oh, okay. All right. Vulnerability increases when residents have limited family support or have been rejected by loved ones. We want to look at this through a trauma-informed lens. That kind of approach means assuming that past harm may be influencing present behavior. Trauma-informed care asks, what might this behavior be protecting the resident from? How can I reduce fear and increase choice, control, and dignity? Small actions like asking permission before touching, offering choices, using correct names and pronouns help rebuild trust. Next, we'll look at practical steps we can take to create safety and prevent recloseting. These are some of the common signs that we might see in residents who are recloseting. I think we covered some of this earlier. Changes in physical appearance, behavior, and language, expressions of anxiety, depression, and hypervigilance. There may be additional complexity with those clients who have dementia, as they may re-experience past trauma as if it's happening right now. This may make them feel unsafe even in a place that is making an effort to appear safe and to be safe. So for those clients with dementia, you really want to go the extra mile to kind of make sure that they're feeling safe and revisit that frequently. So what can we actually do day to day to provide better care? It's not the resident's job to teach us about their identity. That responsibility falls on us as caregivers. We learn basic terminology, gender identities, sexual orientation, pronouns, dead naming. Just educate yourself about all these things. There's lots of information available all around us these days. Seek out resources, workshops, community organizations that can deepen your understanding. As a member of the community, I still occasionally get pronouns wrong. It happens, it's okay. We all have similar social conditioning that makes it difficult sometimes to get things right. Just acknowledge it, own it, apologize, move on. The resident doesn't have to comfort you for making a mistake, just go with it. And let the resident lead. It's about following our residents' leads. You may want to adjust your approach depending on the person and their situation and where they're at. Ask open-ended questions. How would you like to be addressed? Is there anything about your identity or relationships that you'd like us to know? You can even just make little comments that let them know that it's okay with you and that you're open. If a resident, oh yeah. Go ahead.
I just didn't want to lose the reference point, so I oftentimes in my practice, I'll use Dr. Harvey Chachnov's dignity therapy question. What can you tell me about yourself that will help me to provide you the best care possible?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. Love that. Yeah. And that allows them to open up about anything. It's not being specific, so that's great. Thank you. If a resident isn't ready to share, also respect that. So we're not trying to make people come out if they're not ready. Creating safety is about offering an invitation, not forcing a conversation. Remember that disclosure may look different day to day. A resident may feel safe sharing with one staff member and not sharing with other staff members on any given day, and that's okay. If a resident shares something about their identity with you, that is a gift of trust. It isn't yours to pass along. So we're not sharing this information even with other staff members. We're, respecting that trust.
What if you have permission from the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have permission to share, that's fine. You just want to be careful that you're not outing people and making them feel potentially unsafe. So even well-meaning conversations in hallways or at shift change can breach that trust if it's overheard by the resident. Ask the resident, who else knows? Who would you like to know? Let them set the boundaries. Avoid making assumptions. We often make assumptions without realizing it about someone's gender, their relationships, their family structures. You might assume if someone was in a heterosexual relationship that they were always in heterosexual relationships, and that's not the case. Use inclusive language. Default to things like partner instead of husband or wife unless you know that it was a husband or wife and that's how it should be referred to. Choose they instead of assuming someone's pronouns. Small language choices signal to residents whether the environment is safe or not. This is a list of residents' rights and in long-term care. Families who understand these rights are better equipped to advocate for loved ones with clarity and confidence. These principles give us a strong foundation. Now we're going to look at some practical tools. And if anybody wants to interrupt with comments or questions, it's fine. All right, I think I'm going to hand it back to Tara again.
Is that me?
Yeah, it's you again.
Okay. Thanks, Amanda. I think when we think about practical tools, we just went through a whole pile of them, right? The one that Amanda just talked about that really resonates for me is this whole like husband one. I get it all the time. I still get it all the time. And you know, sometimes you think, oh, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you're in a room with a group of executives and someone will look at me and say, what does your husband do? And you're really faced with, okay, do I correct them or do I just say what my husband does, even though I don't have a husband, right? It really puts you in a very uncomfortable situation. But there's so many tools that obviously are in front of us that we just, sometimes they're very basic, but we can remind ourselves to use them. You know, the pronoun one I talked about earlier, asking people what their preferred pronouns are can be really, really powerful. For me, it is. When someone asks me that, I feel safer. You know, I just do, and that's personal for me. Some people may not relate that much to it. I do. And again, like role modeling it by saying what your pronouns are. Like I find sometimes people, and this goes with anything, just showing a little bit of humility and being open to share something. You know, you don't have to share everything about yourself, but sometimes just sharing a little thing opens the door for somebody to want to share about themselves. They just feel automatically they can, right? I think, Amanda, you just covered, like, if you used the wrong pronoun, fix it. It's okay. Move on. Apologize for it. You know, it definitely happens. Staff training, obviously, is really, really important. And again, the repetitiveness of that training, I can't emphasize that enough. Like I used to be a person that, well, we've already covered that and we don't want to keep saying the same thing to people. And then I realize now, after, I guess, 30 years of leadership, I'm getting old now, but you realize that people need to hear it over and over again, right? And for us, it may feel really, really repetitive because we know it, but sometimes people don't catch it until they've heard it 4 or 5 times, right? So it is very, very important. Creating safe spaces is one, you know, I really love because there's such little things that matter. You know, I remember one day walking into an office and I had to go meet this person, and it was a very like high position this individual was in. You know, and I walked in because he wanted just to have an informal conversation and get to know me, and I walk in and, you know, they've got pride stickers all over their computer. And like that little gesture of making a safe place for me, I felt when I sat down and they asked if I was married, yes, I have a wife, I had no problem saying that. I felt I was in a safe place. It's a very simple thing to do, right? Any kind of visual signs like that help. Making sure that there's private places for people to meet is another really good one, and offering that up. If there's a private space that you need to meet with anybody, we can make that available. That helps. And I think the other thing is, it's hard to do it, but when we hear something that does seem like it's a homophobic comment, it's something that's going to make others feel uncomfortable, you know, it's really hard to call that out in public in front of a lot of people. And I'm not suggesting that we do that, but I'm suggesting that we do some sort of sign that lets everybody know that there will be a conversation about it later, right? Like, you want other people in the room to know that that's not okay and it's not tolerated, right? Like, we can't performance manage somebody in front of a group of people. It's not the right thing to do, but it's okay to make some subtle comments on, you know, I wouldn't mind having a chat about that later if you could come see me. And other people are like, oh, maybe this is not, it is going to be dealt with, right? Because sometimes people don't know. They don't know what happens after. And care conferences are so important as well. We do have a lot of information on that, but you know, we didn't know how much experience was in the room or how deep we go in some of those things, right? Oh, those are my slides again. Okay, that's my walker tonight. Okay, gotta keep my slides going. But like, really thinking about if there's been changes noticed by anybody as you have a care conference. Sometimes people will pick up on things that other people will not. So that's really important. Writing down your own thoughts if there was something you notice as you go into a care conference is really important. Any other tools that anybody wants to share?
I'm going to say, especially for LTC homes, where say maybe the person can't necessarily afford a private room, I think LTC homes need to be a little bit more diligent in their application review in terms of matches when it's roommates that are going to be in the same room, because that can be traumatizing if it's an incompatible match.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Thank you.
We have somebody online, Brad, who we've unmuted and we'll invite him to speak.
My name is Brad Lawrence. I'm the general manager at the Village of Winston Park in Kitchener, and we're a large long-term care retirement complex with just over 500 residents that live here. And I agree with everything you're saying, and I really think from our experience, the key is the education piece that you briefly spoke to, but it is so huge. And almost 10 years ago, we started the journey to become an inclusive village and thought we would be able to. In January, said, let's do it. It's all about diversity. Let's do it. In June, on Pride Month, let's put up the flag, and this is going to be great. We invited a community agency in, Spectrum, and they brought that video, Gen Silent, with them, and we watched some of that. And we put the brakes on so quickly because we didn't realize the ramifications of throwing that flag up without doing some really deep diving. And so we've been deep diving really ever since. And it took us 2 years before we put those flags up. And if I can just go back to the recloseting comments that were being made, we have rarely had anyone that's been open and out with us. We did have a gentleman living with dementia, and that was very challenging. And the team was fantastic. We just recently had someone new move in with us, and we're so happy to welcome them. They came on the week we were celebrating Pride, and she and her wife are part of our family now, and we're so glad to have them. But we learned in the process that it wasn't so much the residents here, but it was team. And we wanted to be very sure that we warmed the soil enough to know that it was safe to do that. And it took us quite some time and a lot of meetings. We created a program called Code Rainbow. Those of you that work in healthcare know that there are umpteen codes and they're all color coded. So we created a program called Code Rainbow. And we're still doing that teaching. It includes information like Gen Silent and some history to why people might go back into the closet. And it's about an hour-long program, and we teach it at our orientation all the time. But I just wanted to reiterate about the education. So it's fine to have forms and things, but if you're a large organization like we are, it's not as simple as just change a form. There's computer programs and all that has to be looked at and dealt with before you start asking people all these questions if they don't know it's actually safe coming into the home. We hope people come in, see the flags flying, the flags on the door, flags around the village, that opens the door for them and we're able to get them to share. But that doesn't happen very often. So I just wanted to add that piece about education, and that there are folks out there such as myself. Kathleen and I work together. She leads spiritual care, and it's a journey. Every day is a journey. And to one of the comments that Diane Kilby put in the box, we're coming out every day. I come out every time I do an orientation. I have to come out all the time. And so it's that never ending ongoing process. So I just wanted to add that. So thank you for listening.
We're good? Okay. Thank you so much, Brad. That was absolutely incredible. And I'd love to hear more about the Code Rainbow if you're open to having a chat. Because as I said, I'm looking to learn from people here tonight as well. And that sounds absolutely amazing.
We have another handout, Barbara,
Perfect.
from Rakai. So it's going to be interesting to see these two say hello to each other. So again, if we can just turn the mic off.
Can you hear me? Is that, yes? Okay, great. We're hearing a lot of, doom and gloom, and I think we do need to hear it. But I'd like to spin this a little on a positive note as well. Brad touched on having training, and I agree, Brad, 110%. We weren't able to open up our Rainbow Wing until 2022, and the initiative started in 2008. So really being condescending, getting feedback, community consultation. So not just training, but hearing from the people who live there, the people who are going to live there. So it took a long time, but we were able to create the only first long-term care home that supports a Rainbow Wing in all of North America, but we've just identified in all of the world in a long-term care setting. We're lucky that we live adjacent to the Church and Wellesley community, but this is doable in other regions. And it doesn't need to be an entire wing. It doesn't need to be an entire floor. It could be a nook. It could be something that identifies an area where someone can feel safe. So we have a Rainbow Champion program, and I think that's very similar to your Code Rainbow, but we actually have champions in the building. But I wanted to touch on something you said, Brad, about training. And yes, training, yes, we get it. But there needs to be one piece that the leadership needs to be accountable for, is the coaching and the mentoring consistently to make the program sustainable. So it's great to have education, but it's that coaching and mentoring that needs to happen. And that's why we have our champions who are able to do that on the unit and on the spot. So I just wanted to touch on that there are good things happening out there in long-term care. And Rakai is doing something. The only thing that we're pushing on doing is changing the regulations in the province of Ontario, because right now there's a designation for cultural homes. And you all know that it's linguistics, it's, spiritual and also cultural. but what we're ethnicity, I'm sorry. But right now, I've been fighting since 2023 to make this a priority access for those seniors who are living in the community from the 2S LGBTQI plus community, and allowing them priority access. So that fight is still going on. And if anybody wants to join my legislative fight to change the regulations, I would enjoy that. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for that, and Brad. And thank you to both of you for the great work that is happening. It's really good to hear some of that positive that's happening out there. You know, I will say, there's such amazing points, right? Education all the time has to happen. And then coaching and mentoring, really important. And the one word I would add to coaching and mentorship is also the accountability piece, right? So important, because we can coach, we can mentor, we can educate, but we have to hold people accountable that are on staff and make sure that they're living it. They're not just showing up for the education.
They have to be authentic.
They have to be authentic about it. And they have to want to be there. Like, sometimes it's a fit to role. If they can't really be authentic and want to be there and create those safe places, then maybe it's not the right place for them to be. So those are tough conversations to have, but there's a lot of great work, it sounds, that's underway, which is good to hear. I think lastly right now, I just had a couple of scenarios really that I wanted to talk through. They're simple scenarios, but they're likely scenarios that happen, right? So the idea here is I'm gonna just read a couple of scenarios and we can have a bit of a discussion on that, right? Thinking about, what's happening in the scenario, what would you do if you were there running this care facility? Again, no wrong answers, safe space, but let's just hear a couple of these. So the first one is about Margaret. So Margaret is 78, and Margaret has been living in the long-term care home for 6 months. She's quiet, polite, keeps mostly to herself. One afternoon, a woman named Ruth visits. They sit close together and they're holding hands. A staff member later mentions to a colleague in the hallway, "I think Margaret might be, and another resident overhears and starts making comments at dinner. The next week, Ruth stops visiting. Margaret tells staff that she does not have any family left." So what's happening here?
I think that one employee broke the trust and started to share things that they experienced and witnessed, and I think that's all that the residents needed to begin that way she feels ostracized and alone again.
She was out there.
Yeah.
I love that you used the word broke the trust.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because Margaret felt safe enough to sit there and hold hands with this individual, right? So there was some trust, and it was broken, which is very sad. What else? What can you do now to rebuild trust with Margaret? Could be a long road, right? Yeah. But can we rebuild trust with Margaret? I would like to think absolutely we can. How would we start?
Apologize.
Absolutely.
Lead by example.
Yeah, lead by example. How would we do that, do you think?
Not just to Margaret, it's also to Ruth or Ruby.
Yeah.
They must apologize too. I mean, she's suddenly out of Margaret's life. That's awful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, yeah. 2 apologies. And not performative. They must be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think speaking to the staff members is extremely important too.
Very important. Accountability, right?
It should never happen in the first place.
Absolutely. Should never have happened. What about even using this as an example, right? In the education piece, in the coaching and mentoring, this is a great example to use. And sometimes the people that make these mistakes are willing to step up and say, "This is what happened. I did this. I didn't realize the impact." And there's nothing more powerful than that, right? Yeah. Anything else before I move on this one?
Nothing in our chat. Does anybody, yeah.
Nothing? Okay. Okay, so let's think. Man, I can't remember to wear glasses or not wear glasses. This is an age thing too, I think. What do you think? Okay, now we're going to talk about David. So David is 72, recently moved into your facility. His intake form lists his legal name as Diane and his sex as female. During the first morning, a PSW enters and says, "Good morning, Diane. Let's get you dressed, dear." David doesn't correct them. Over the following weeks, David refuses help with grooming and begins wearing clothes that he doesn't look too comfortable in. And a family member visits and calls him David, and the staff are surprised. What's happening here? Definitely a scenario we can see, right? Happening, for sure.
I feel like that happens all the time in my country. Like everybody's like that. And it's really sad to see. And sometimes their friend knows about it, but their family cannot know about it. Like they cannot know about that. And like you see your best friend is going through it and you cannot do anything. And it's really heartbreaking.
It is, it's very heartbreaking.
And the problem is you really cannot do anything there. Like here I feel like there is some hope, but there you don't see hope.
It's an interesting, different perspective, right?
Yeah.
That we get to hear that,
like
here there's hope, right?
Like when I come to these places that you can at least talk about, like it's something that is there.
Yeah.
It's really like moving. Like I cannot stop crying. Like I go to a pride parade and I start crying for the whole time because I'm like seeing all these people at least acknowledge the fact that something exists in this world.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
I think the intake form could have been better, obviously. So understanding what a dead name is
Somebody
and leaving a dead name as it is, yeah, and that probably would have been more comfortable for David.
Absolutely. There was no area on the intake form for pronouns or gender identity, right?
Yeah.
So.
Or maybe not have read the form, if there were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just assumed, it's just another resident to take care of, and didn't ask permission. One didn't ask, what would you like me to?
Absolutely.
Kathleen would like to share something, so if we can just mute the speaker's mic, I can unmute or I can.
I worked at a major hospital doing spiritual care in palliative situations. And one of the insidious things that happens is oncologists often recommend to people who are taking hormones that they should stop taking hormones in order to make their other chemotherapy more effective. And I've had to work with people and with the physicians to say it is not a life worth sustaining if the person cannot live in their correct gender. And that's a hard one.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's very hard. Absolutely.
Well, that kind of restriction, isn't that physically harmful to someone who's been taking hormones for years? I mean, you're putting them at physical risk now, not just emotional risk. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, a doctor needs to be involved with that kind of thing.
It's mind-blowing that this stuff would happen, isn't it? Unbelievable. What do you think in David's case here? So how would we approach David and affirm his identity? How would we do that?
Probably admit that, there's been a breach. And ask him how he what might be helpful to address it, as opposed to coming with the answers.
Yeah.
But allowing him to gain some control.
I love that, right? It's very safe, open space. Like, how do we do this, right? I love that.
You come with questions, not answers.
So why do we think David, did not correct the PSW?
Probably after a lifetime of discrimination, like people in our community can attest to. It gets to the point where you just don't want to fight anymore. You're tired, especially at his age. I feel like if that were me, I'd just be like, okay, you know what? I'm done fighting the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an important point. And remember, in this scenario, he was a new resident, right? Yeah. So he was also new, so already feeling very much in a vulnerable position. And this is an authority figure. Do I really want to come in here and correct an authority figure?
The teacher, the principal, the gym teacher, the school bully, the on and on and on. Right? Like we all went through, right?
Absolutely. So any of the notes that I had here, you all covered. This has been such an incredible room. Very, very engaging. Do we have any more comments or questions in the chat,
No.
Tracy? No? Just want to make sure we...
Thank yous to everybody for sharing, so both online and in person. Just thank you to everybody for being so open and willing to engage in such great conversation.
Definitely, and I took a lot of notes as we went here too, because there were a lot of things that you've raised that will go into the next session, making the next one better, right? And we'll just keep building on this every time we do one.
Sorry, Brad has his hand up again. Glenn, can you mute the camera or that one for me, please?
Sorry, I just wanted to make one comment. We keep referring to long-term care, but we really need to focus on the retirement world as well, because there is such a shortage of long-term care. Retirement is the same challenges for people, and it's generally the first option for people before long-term care. So, and maybe often people just use the term long-term care and it includes that, but I just wanted to recognize that long-term care and retirement are two separate worlds, and there are probably more seniors living in retirement than long-term care, because I think there are more retirement homes around than long-term care. So I just wanted to add that we're really, retirement is also part of the healthcare community, and it's often the first option for people. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
I'm reluctant to speak because I don't think I know much about what I'm talking about. But if I was in that kind of a situation, I would want somebody who could be a support person to me, somebody I could talk to about what was happening to me, talk to about how I was feeling about it, and maybe help me think my way through things to make me stronger to deal with situations. Because I've talked to people who were in retirement homes and found it very difficult, just the general attitude towards it being an institution and everybody's being fed into the processes of the institution. So anyway, that's just what struck me as I heard these very wonderful comments.
And as Amanda was saying, community, it happens in community care as well.
Yeah.
So even in something that we would not imagine as being an institutionalized environment, it's our home environment, it's still happening so much.
Yeah. So you get it across institutions, but also in people's homes when caregivers are coming into their homes as well.
Absolutely.
But a lot of places don't have education for their PSWs and for home care.
Right.
So to be aware of being able to be more open with.
Yeah, it would be nice to
And
see
not
it as
just
part of
for-
like the curriculum for PSW programs
Yeah.
as well, and agencies
And it's
doing
not,
it as well. Yeah.
In the retirement community that I live in, we have a statement that, an inclusive statement that all are welcome. And it's printed and it's out there
And
and,
there's a flag probably here and there.
yeah. It's just part of who we are, you know?
You know, I'm realizing as I hear all these comments, right, just how big this work is.
Yes.
I mean, I will do this until I die, long into my retirement, and we still will have work to do, right? Because we start with one thing, and like Brad said, it's not just long-term care facilities.
That's right.
It's everywhere, but we're starting here, it's a place to start, and then we just keep building on that, right?
Absolutely.
And the more people we touch, the more work other people will do, which is incredible. This room has been absolutely amazing tonight. Those of you online participating as well, thank you so much. Want to open it up a
Sorry,
little
on that
bit.
note, yeah, if you can mute that microphone again, I'll put my audio on, and then Dawn has her hand up.
Okay, I just wonder when we're talking about the steps that can be taken during, interactions or incidents like this. I'm wondering what can, if anything, can be done to work with other residents who might just be stuck in the way they want to think about things and can sometimes, be hard to bring on side about, being kind to people and, just if you can't say something positive, then don't say anything at all.
Wonderful. So I think that was really a question, right, out to all of us of what else can be done, right, in those scenarios. It was Dawn, right? You said Dawn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dawn.
And then we had another comment in the chat that said, constant staff changes make it a process that never ends and must really add to the frustration that residents feel, feeling they have to restate who they truly are again and again and again ad nauseum.
Yeah, it's so true, so true. And the gentleman over here, I can't remember your name, sorry?
Merv.
What is it?
Merv.
Merv mentioned earlier, right? That constant turnover. Exactly to your point, that constant turnover makes it impossible. So you need this constant education and role modeling and reaffirming all the time because it is difficult. And today, more than ever, in any field, I said I worked in corporate finance for 27 years. In the last couple of years, our clients have been telling us the hardest thing today is not just attracting talent in any business or industry, keeping staff too, right? It's so hard right now. And so really working on that, like how do we keep people longer and not have as much turnover is important. We want to open.
Sorry, I just asked Glenn to mute the microphone again. Brad has his hand up. Brad, just give me 1 second.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a comment to staff turnover and totally agree. It is a big challenge, but in a perfect world, if we were living in our perfect world, every resident in retirement home and in our long-term care has a care plan. And in a perfect world, if we had the proper paperwork that had all the right terminology and everything in it, every team member would know about that person's care plan that they're going to be working with, and we wouldn't have to have someone come out over and over and over because we would have already had the conversation. We would have already known. And I'm just saying that's in a perfect world. We're getting closer to that, but we all know how well people read things, right? And check things and read signs and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to say that shouldn't have to be a burden on residents. Not saying it's not, because I believe it is, but in a perfect world, our system should take care of that so that they don't. Thank you.
Right, that was
Yeah, thank you, Brad. I took notes on that too, so that's very helpful. You know, I think with that, there's the piece in addition to, do people know, right? New staff come in, they know, there's a great documented care plan, but there's also that really tough part about, do they care and do they have a different view, right? Like, that's the tough part that will always come with new people, no matter how well we do with the institutional facilities or the onboarding. And it takes a while sometimes to know that, right? Unless we're very diligent, but it's such a good point. We're gonna take a few minutes here to see if there's any other questions or any dialogue that we should be having that we didn't do today before we wrap up on next steps. Because we're getting close to the end. Anything else that anybody wants to put on the table? Nothing in the chat? We're good?
I'm trying to think of how to, and I don't need the camera on me. I'm trying to think of how to, the context. And I think it's something around always, and I think we talked a bit about it tonight, meeting people where they're at and not always making, like, sometimes we can make assumptions in the wrong direction. So for example, I remember a few years ago when we were starting to work on No Place Like Home, we were doing a series of engagement and meeting and focus work at an organization in Toronto called the 519. And we would start our group with inviting people to introduce themselves and share their pronouns. And there was one gentleman there who was an older adult and felt really offended by the concept of pronouns. And, you know, I kind of was a little bit surprised. I thought, well, isn't that what we're supposed to do? And so it really opened my eyes to, you know, we are all very different, obviously, but really meeting people where they're at and not coming into the conversation, especially if we're not a member of the community, not having these preconceived notions of what we should be saying or how we should be saying it, or what we might be trying to push as far as, you know, showing how inclusive we are by really leaning into something that maybe not everybody, especially maybe our older adult communities, don't necessarily feel the same way about as some of younger community members. So that was a big aha moment for me, and I was so grateful that it was somebody at the 519 that was leading, and they had to navigate that, because I was just like, I'm not sure what to do about this.
Yeah, I think it's important to think about it as making safe spaces where people are comfortable and not so much ticking boxes and, you know, being very rigid about rules and what we say and that kind of thing. It's more about, it's about comfort and safety.
Yeah, it's such an important point. I had a couple of friends of mine just less than a year ago. Their parents were not very well, suffering with all kinds of illness, and they wanted to set up the medically assisted in dying. And they had their first meeting, and they got so overwhelmed and upset with the questions around pronouns because he had no idea why people were asking him that. It didn't make sense. It upset him so much that they stopped the process. And they never did go back and get what they wanted at the end, right? And it's exactly to Tracy's point. It's probably a tick box exercise for the individual that sat in front of them, right? Instead of really trying to understand if they even knew what that meant.
Just a comment, or I'll read a couple of comments that are in the chat. So I think bringing new staff on board, it is urgent that there be questions that relate to gender and sexual orientation. So couldn't agree, that was the situation I'd experienced with the PSW. And he meant, this individual, sorry, pronouns, he, him, thank you, meant, in the above comment, meant more in relation to job interviewing. And Kathleen said, laugh out loud, when Brad interviewed me, they were trying to ask me about my inclusiveness. I told them I wasn't a lesbian, but my wife was. I think that when you're interviewing, you should start the discussion. So Kathleen, that was awesome. I love that. Thank you. That was terrific.
I love that. Thank you. Anything else before we close out for this evening?
Can I tell you a joke? It's actually not a joke.
Please.
Well, you're talking about unintentional slips that can be offensive. It reminded me of once when I did that, I worked with two guys. One was named Peter and the other was named Tunis, a Dutch name. So I was referring them to once, and instead of saying Peter and Tunis, I said penis and tutor. Everybody laughed, but they weren't there.
Yeah. Sometimes the most innocent slips, right? Like, can have big impacts. We don't know.
Sorry, just one sec. Brad, if we can unmute or mute that microphone, Brad's got his hand up. And Brad, just give me 1 second and I'll say, hey, good to go.
So just one final comment. Kathleen and Holly and I work for the same organization, and I'm just going to do a plug for long-term care and retirement, that we are a very relationship-oriented organization. And so we do our very best to try and make people feel included when they move in. We know we have lots of work to do in terms of 2SLGBTQ, in terms of our brochures, in terms of all that behind the scenes stuff. But when they're in the village, we try to get everyone's story. We try to know who they are. We try to know who's the most important person in their life. We try. And earlier you were talking about people being closeted. And when I started here over 17 years ago, there was a couple living in the apartments here. We have long-term care, retirement, and condominiums. They were living there. I was open about who I was. They knew all about my family. They knew all about my partner. They never once ever said to me anything about themselves as a couple until one of them died. And then the other one said, it was not always easy for us to be together. And as she was deteriorating and declining, one day she said to me, well, what if my friend Marion found out about me? And I said, are you kidding me? Marion loves you. She doesn't care about this. And it just breaks your heart that for years, these two lived here. Maybe they thought people knew. I don't know, but they didn't even say anything to me, who was open and out with them. They were interested in my life. And until they were dying, that's when it starts to come out. And that's just sad. And that's part of the work we're trying to do here, that nobody needs to live like that. And nobody needs to feel like that, because somebody here will love you. So if you open up, we're there for you. That's my little plug for the village of Winston Park. So thank you.
Wow, that was a really powerful way to wrap up, honestly, because if that's not a call to action, I don't know what is, right? So thank you so much for that, Brad.
And just Tiffany says there are also intersectional layers when it comes to unpacking stigma in racialized communities as well. So different approaches that are required to really fill a gap. And then Holly shared a resource, so I'm going to grab that link so that when we circle back with even the people who are here today, they can get the benefit of the link. So Holly, thank you for doing that.
Fantastic.
That's wonderful.
Oh, this, yeah.
Thanks to everybody for all the great input. It was.
You two did very well for your first time.
Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate all the engagement. Thank you for that. Thank you, Amanda. I always like working with Amanda. This is the second time we've done a project together. I'm probably going to do a lot more. Okay, so just a huge thank you to everybody. You can see that we put here commitments and next steps. I don't really think of it as a commitment. We're not going to ask you to give us your commitment. The ask is if you took one thing away, like if you heard one thing tonight that made you think about something you could do, no matter how small, really want you to grab onto that, right? And that's all we can ask for. The second big ask for us is just feedback. Again, first time doing it, we really want your feedback. We'll build it in, we'll just get better, and we'll keep doing more of these as long as Tracy will let us, and Glenn.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much to Tracy. Your work around this is absolutely incredible, and we're just so privileged to be a part of it.
Thank you.
And thankfully Glenn was here to do tech, or we would have been in big trouble. So thank you so much, Glenn. Callista, no place like home. We are thrilled to be working with you. Thank you so much.
Kathleen said she said we need a way of keeping in touch. So I said we will look at how we can build our new community now, because we've really drawn the circle wider today. And then Kathleen's asking, what is the program that Callista talked about? So do you want to mention for a couple minutes, or do you want me to? Are you sure? Okay.
That'd be great.
Sorry, I'm gonna come up this way so I stop looking like I'm slugging on the couch. So No Place Like Home is the program that Home Hospice Association is working on so that we can really ensure that the needs of members of the community are able to live and die well. We as an organization believe that living and dying are the same side, or on the same side of the coin. They're not opposite sides of the coin. We need to learn to live well, and then we're able to die well. As an organization, our focus is non-medical end-of-life care. So when we think about the way in which we can come together to care for members of the population in order to live, age, and die well, we see it within a non-medical space. And so the program is about working with organizations to help them grow the care that they wish to provide, whether it's an organization that's currently doing end-of-life care, or whether it's an organization providing various services to the community. We want to help ensure that those services and that care can extend to include end-of-life. So No Place Like Home is the name of our program. It was my colleague at the 519 who handled that very challenging question, or navigated that experience, who came up with the name No Place Like Home. So we proudly carry it forward with our existing partners, and hopefully after tonight some new partners, so that we can truly draw the circle of care wider and look after each other at end of life in the most compassionate, dignified, and caring way. So that's No Place Like Home. Donna.
I just wanted to remind you about the connection to resident and family council that you're really seeking.
Yes, so this workshop, Still Me, the goal of this workshop, or one of the goals of the workshop, is to be able to work with family councils within retirement homes and long-term care homes to deliver to family members. We hope that that might be an additional way to grow a relationship within a long-term care facility that will truly allow people to live and die as and who they are. So thanks, Donna. Thank you. That's it. It's a wrap.